So maybe say who you are. I forgot to do that with my first one. I'm like, we'll see how that goes. But who you are and what is your brand?
My name is Brianne Day, and my brand is Day Wines.
And what do you make?
I make anything that you possibly could make from Oregon, pretty much. I make very classic versions of Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, and I really try to have them be very site-specific and expressive of those places. And then I make a bevy of other things that mostly are inspired by regional blends that exist somewhere else in the world, but some of which are kind of made up things that I made up. So, I mean, would you like me to be more specific? I'd like to be more specific.
I think, of course, no, I think that's a good, we're just looking at this sort of overall picture of what your brand is about. And so I think this next question is probably the easiest and the hardest all at one time, but what makes Day Wines different, and why should people care? There's a lot of wine out there. Why you and not somebody else?
Well, I think that our brand is very different. When I was going through school for winemaking and for learning how to build a wine brand, I heard a lot of things that by the instructors, and I literally thought to myself, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do exactly the opposite of what you're telling me, because a lot of what they were teaching was to make the brands in a specific way that's accessible to the market. That's kind of like a tried and true way of creating a winery, like focusing on Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, and Pinot Gris, having very classic branding, having consistent branding, and all those things that my label isn't. My label is really this outpouring of something right here. There's something right here that I feel in it when I make every wine and when I make every label, and it's this energy that I'm putting into it. So I think what makes it different is that it makes sense to me on like a creative level, but I think when you look at the breadth of what we make, it takes some explaining to try to make it make sense to other people. You know what I'm saying?
Totally.
Okay.
I do.
As my distributor, I'm sure you know what I'm saying, because you're trying to tell other people about this too. So,
well, I mean, I think your brand is certainly not a one sentence pitch. There's more. You have to have a consumer that's willing to read to the second paragraph to be able to get a better understanding about what you're doing, which I think is what makes, one of the things that makes it interesting, so I can see that.
Honey, it's a little loud. Can you do it somewhere else? No. It's impossible. He can't do it anywhere else. Only right there.
Yes, I understand. So, the transition here is like, and just to preface that, I think one of the things that has been really surprising for me and interesting for me, which we talked about a little bit on the phone as a precursor to this conversation, is how everybody, like how much closer in some ways people have become, even though we cannot see each other in person, because we have these like weird video conferences, or because whenever I'm on the phone with you and you have my kids in the background causing trouble, you are fully appreciative of this tiny window that I get where they are not hanging all over me. So, and, we're looking into each other's living rooms, and, even like the salespeople that have worked for us for a decade. And I'm like, oh, I've never been to their house necessarily, so it's an interesting kind of bizarre voyeuristic experience that we're all having. So that's one of the things that has been surprising to me. And one of the reasons why I think, even though we are, of course, all standing apart, we are somehow more together in some weird ways. So has there been anything that's been surprising to you from this whole experience?
Yeah, that's actually really interesting. I thought about that question before having this call, but I didn't really have like a specific thing like that. But I agree with you that it's been very humanizing across the board. I feel like we as a society and as a culture hold celebrity up to a certain level, or we hold sports people up to a certain level, and it's been interesting to see that everyone is affected by this the same, that no matter your social status, or I mean, that's not to say that if you know, that financially not everyone is being affected by this the same, but physically no one's immune to it. Everyone has to take the same precautions. It's been interesting to watch late night television and see Stephen Colbert in his house, and you know, see Saturday Night Live from their houses and everything. So I agree with you that it's been very it made people's lives more personal, and it's made this human connection feel stronger to me that we just didn't have access to before, because our lives are so curated in a way, what we present on social media or how we present ourselves in the workplace, and is specific, and we can choose what we show. But you're on a Zoom call, and yeah, your 2-year-olds are unpredictable, and you know, you can't do anything about that. So
yeah, it is very true. Do you have any hobbies or anything that has helped you kind of, or anything that you've been doing on the regular that's been helpful? It's been very busy for me. I haven't really had a lot of extra time, because initially when it all first happened, I had to lay off almost all of my staff, and I picked up their slack. I thought we were going to just be dead in the water, and that wouldn't matter, but I didn't realize how much online sales and whatnot were going to take off. So I've been really, really busy ever since the start of it. So when I do have time, I really try to unplug and do something physical. It's the kind of work that has been keeping me busy is this kind of work, like being in front of screens and finding new ways of selling, and not that physical labor that winemaking is typically. So it's been whatever I can do to be busy. I've planted a couple gardens. I planted a big one at the winery. I planted one at home. I've been doing as much yard work as possible. I try to get my son and our dog out for exercise and walks every day, and just try to really do things that are completely not related to wine or work at all. Art projects with Vigo, things like that. Yeah, I got you. Do you have any music that you've been listening to more than not?
Yeah, I was thinking about that, because I hadn't really thought about, you know, you just do what you do. You don't really stop and think about it. But I find that we listen to very energetic music in the house. I don't even I was thinking about it, and I'm like, man, we do not have anything mellow that we chill out music or anything like that. Like, my chill out is to put on LCD sound system, and God, the filter. My filter just went up, but I'm not gonna have it. I'm eat an edible and dance my ass off. That's pretty much what. That's, you know. So it's like LCD sound system. I like to listen to very silly operatic 70s music, like ELO and Queen, and sing them to Vigo, and he thinks I'm insane, but it's fun. And there's a couple of what's that?
I just think it's really helpful for them to see you being silly and having fun doing that, you know, they need that.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a big thing just to be goofy with him. I listen to there's a couple of 70s West African kind of Afro disco musicians that we'll listen to. Really, anything where you can just be silly and dance. And Vigo likes to chase me around the house, so that's
so
where we are. Yeah.
And so last thing, you know, obviously the most important question, what's your drink?
I think it's really easy for me to drink, Bud, take it easy. For me to drink wine regularly. I have a lot of access to it. And so I've actually been trying to not drink wine all the time. And I try to drink sparkling water as much as possible. And I know that sounds really boring, but like, it's really, really, I don't want to come out of this whole pandemic with issues that I need to resolve. So, I mean, I do drink wine pretty regularly, and it's typically my own wines. I've been trying to get to know them because I make so many of them that I'm seeing what they pair well with, and just getting to know them better. So drinking a lot of my Vin de l'Orange, my Mamacita, some of my Chardonnay, I guess my whites. I drink a lot of my whites. But that's probably about 4 days a week. And the other 3 days a week, I try to not have anything and have sparkling water as much as possible, and not create problems for myself.
Choosing a different way to cope. Yeah. All right. Well, that's my whole lineup. So you made it through.
Okay, cool.
Wine colors, and I will, once I do all the other work that is involved, I will, so you can see everything, of course, and when the post goes up, we'll see how long it takes us to get it kind of organized. But we're trying to get it out there as soon as we can. So we'll, hopefully we'll see it sooner rather than later.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But I really appreciate the time, and please thank Vigo for giving us, letting you have a little more screen time today.
Yeah. Vigo, thank you for letting Mama do this. I think I like that. He's off on something else. So.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Brianne. I'll let you go. Have a great Thursday.
You too. Thank you. See you.
Bye.